The Hurt Business are back, and they're going to war with the Bloodline. It's complete chaos on Monday Night Raw. There's spot fires all over the arena, and all members are engaged in a wild brawl. And how on earth will they bring this under control? And there's a meeting taking place after the chaos of earlier, and MVP is talking to both Lashley and Omos. He says, we need to get on the same page or this is all for nothing. We're all about business, but we're also a family. We stick together. If we don't, the Bloodline will run all over us. So are we good? Lashley and Omos look at each other, and Lashley says, I am if he is. And Omos doesn't say a word. And MVP says, Omos, are we good? And Omos reluctantly says yes. MVP says, alright, we need to get down to business. They got the jump on us tonight. They rolled into our territory, so we might just have to roll into theirs on SmackDown. Funnily enough, there's dissension in the Bloodline camp as well, and a very similar conversation is happening between Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. Jimmy is trying to calm things down between Zayn and Jey, because they almost come to blows during the brawl on Raw. But while Jimmy is trying to reason with him, we see footage of Solo Sikoa getting beaten down by Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. And Paul Heyman runs in to tell the Usos and Zayn, and they immediately run out to the aid of Solo. But they're met by Lashley and Omos, who are standing united. They lay out both Usos and Zayn, and in the ring, Alexander and Benjamin have dispatched Sikoa as well. And MVP walks out through the crowd, and he says, see what happens when the tribal chief doesn't show up? When daddy's not in the house? And that's why this is a war you won't win. Because we're more of a family than even the family themselves. We acknowledge you, alright. We acknowledge that if it bleeds, you can kill it, and the Bloodline will bleed out. Reigns then has a message of his own. I dare you to make me bleed. Keep looking over your shoulder, boys. That receipt is coming. You will acknowledge me. In the lead up to the next Raw, officials are on high alert. Triple H has security all over the building, and he's officially requested that the Bloodline not attend. But that means nothing. The security gets destroyed by the invading Bloodline. They breach Monday Night Raw, and while the Hurt Business is in the middle of a massive 6-man main event, they immediately fly into the arena, and it's pure carnage again. All members of each team spill all through the arena, and the crowd can't believe what they're seeing. And Triple H storms out this time. He's fuming. He screams at everyone to stop, but he can't control them. It's come apart at the seams. Triple H marches to the middle of the ring, and he screams again, but not to stop. He has 2 words for everyone in the building, and it's not the 2 words he was once known for. He yells, War Games. The crowd comes unglued, but the pandemonium continues. We don't even know if they heard him. The show goes off the air with pretty much a raging inferno inside the arena. We get to SmackDown, and the heat continues to rise between these two teams. And since they wouldn't listen to Triple H on Raw, he makes them listen this time. He says, as I said on Raw, the Bloodline will face the Hurt Business in the most violent match in professional wrestling, War Games. And to make sure we get there without these two teams tearing apart my company, we are going to have a best 2 out of 3 series to determine who gets the advantage in the match. Starting this Monday, where it will be the Usos versus Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. And the next match will be announced right after that. So there's no interference, no more chaotic brawls. We do this the right way. We do this my way. And then, when you get inside that cage at Survivor Series, you can tear each other limb from limb. And MVP, who was watching backstage with Bobby Lashley, says, they're going to eat each other alive. We just need to make sure that Zayn and Jey Uso sabotage themselves. But Bobby, I need you to make sure you and Omos are okay. And Bobby says, I've already said it. It's fine with me if it's fine with him. You get your boy in order, and we will do the rest. After all, I was fighting. Where was he on Monday? The first match in the series is on, and it's an exciting but heated clash between the Usos, Alexander and Benjamin. It's incredibly fast-paced, and both teams know that so much rides on the first win. But up on the entranceway, Reigns and Lashley have been arguing and squaring up to each other, and it's spilled out onto the entrance. Reigns and Lashley are pretty much nose to nose at this point, but then from backstage we see MVP send Omos out there to take care of the situation. But it doesn't go as planned. Omos clatters into Lashley. It's disaster for the Hurt Business, and Reigns walks off knowing that he's started another fire. But Alexander is worried. He's looking down at the entranceway, but he's taken his eyes off the prize, and the Usos capitalize. They hit a massive splash, and it is all over, and the Bloodline have drawn first blood. But the big story is still on the entrance. MVP is out there now trying to calm the situation down between Omos and Lashley. He's pleading with them not to fight. But then we see in the ring Sami Zayn joins the celebrations with Jey and Jimmy Uso. But Jey is having none of that either. It's a tense stare-down between Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. And Jimmy is trying to calm them down as well. It's safe to say that this situation has combustible written all over it. And right after the match, Triple H appears on the Tron. He says, "It's convenient that you are out there, Omos. Oh, and you too, Sammy, because you two are facing this week on SmackDown. Good luck." It's time for the next leg in the best 2 out of 3 series, and it's a big one. Literally, because Omos is dominating Zayn. He's throwing him all over the ring. And very quickly, we see Jimmy Uso surface because he wants to help. But who comes out to stop him? It's Jey. He's yelling at his brother. He says, "Don't you dare go down there and help him. He made his bed, and if he wants to be in the Bloodline, he can earn it." Jimmy doesn't go down, and Sami Zayn gets put down by Omos. And the Bloodline literally stands back while the series is leveled. And MVP saw the whole thing, and he's happy for now, because Triple H then approaches him backstage, and he says, "Well, it looks like we're tied. So this week, on Raw, it's the decider. And you'll be involved, because it's you and Bobby versus Roman and Solo." MVP can't believe it. I don't think he was ready to be physically involved. But he did step on the apron at Crown Jewel, and he is willing to fight for the cause. And he's gonna need to bring the biggest fight of his entire career. We see even more cracks appear in the Bloodline as well. Jey Uso is getting verbally blasted by Roman Reigns for costing them the lead and potentially the entire series. Jey doesn't even acknowledge him though. He storms off instead, with storm being the operative word, because there is certainly one brewing. We reach the hugely important final match in the series, and it is on, and boy is it physical. MVP hasn't lost a step, and he gets in some strong shots on Solo Sikoa. And then we get a double down situation. MVP struggling to the corner, Solo struggling to his corner. And Solo gets the tag first, and Reigns makes it over to MVP before he can even get the tag. And he drops MVP and then knocks Lashley off the apron. It's then that Omos decides that he's going to take matters into his own hands. But Jey and Jimmy Uso, they come out to try and stop him, but he brushes them off. And then Sami Zayn tries, and he gets dispatched as well. Omos reaches ringside, and he picks up MVP, who has rolled to the outside of the ring in desperation. And Omos looks at Lashley and says, "I'm doing this for him, not you." And Lashley fronts up to Omos again. There's even more tension. But then from behind, Reigns pushes Omos into MVP. Lashley gets wiped out by Solo Sikoa, and Reigns spears Omos and then throws MVP in the ring. Reigns does it. He wins the advantage for the Bloodline. But there's still so much more to play out. Zayn and Jey Uso are now arguing on the entrance again, and Lashley and Omos are right in each other's face as well. And on the SmackDown before the war, we have a final face-to-face between Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns, right back where it all started. And the rest of the teams have been banned from the arena to preserve the match. And Bobby Lashley says, "I can see the fear in your eyes, Roman. I know that you know you've met your match in us. No one tests you like the Hurt Business tests you. You run your little mouth constantly, and it's pissing me off. If you're so confident, why don't you up the stakes, Roman? If you're this big, dominant force, then why don't you put it all on the line? Put all of those titles on the line." And Roman, who's a bit taken back, says, "Yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you? But I don't answer to you. I answer to no one. I make the rules around here." And as Roman starts to walk off, Lashley really gets under his skin. He says, "I knew you were chicken shit. I could see it a mile away. You're terrified to lose, even with all your boys there propping you up. You're pathetic." And Reigns spins around. He says, "Oh, I'm chicken shit. You really think you have a chance, don't you, Bobby? Well, I'm here to tell you, you don't. We've seen millions like you come and go. You guys can't hang with us, and we're gonna prove it, because you're on. All of our titles on the line. Let's go to war." The first two men inside War Games is two of the powerhouses of both teams, Omos and Solo Sikoa. But even Sikoa struggles with the big man. Omos is tossing him all over the cage, and Solo is in enormous trouble, but they have the advantage. And here comes the Bloodline's backup. It's Sami Zayn. But the 2-on-1 advantage doesn't help right at the beginning because Omos is such a gargantuan task. But they do eventually manage to wear him down. Zayn and Sikoa work well together, and they're able to hurt the big man enough to get him off his feet and make him vulnerable. But it's then the next combatant comes in. It's MVP. He's here to lend a hand to his protege. He evens the odds and he gets Hurt Business back in it. But it's tough, and the match is just starting to ramp up. But things get even more interesting when the next man in is Jey Uso. He gets in the match, and even though Omos and MVP are double teaming Solo Sikoa, Sami and Jey start arguing again. This is not the right time for this. The advantage is null and void because the Bloodline simply can't get along. The next entrant in has his chance, and it's Cedric Alexander. But Alexander doesn't even go through the door. He climbs the cage and breaks up the argument himself. He leaps off the top and he wipes out Sami Zayn, and then he nails Jey Uso as well. And the Bloodline needs to get on the same page or this is going to slip through their hands. But a man who helps the situation is the next entrant, Jimmy Uso. He immediately comes in and he steadies the ship. He yells at his brother Jey and he says, "You need to get your head in the game. You're going to cost us everything." And that fires Jey up. He and Sami put their differences aside and the fight rages on. The Bloodline has the outnumber and they start to use it wisely. But it doesn't last long as the next entrant is Shelton Benjamin. And he comes in and he combines with his tag team partner and they get the better of each member of the Bloodline. But the fight is only just starting to heat up. Reigns is here, and he is on fire. He wipes out Alexander, he wipes out Benjamin, and he takes out MVP too. And then it's time for Reigns to come face to face with the behemoth Omos, and they start to trade. Omos and Reigns go back and forth, but then it's time for the final member of the match to enter. Lashley is in the match and he cleans house as well. He takes out Sami. He takes out both Usos. And he and Solo have a brief altercation, but Lashley dispatches him as well. Reigns has managed to get the better of Omos, and the big face-off finally happens. The two leaders, the two linchpins, the current champion and the potential future champion. It's all on the line, and the match explodes to life again. The match is chaos, just like the build-up, and it gets even more drama-filled when during this fight, Sami Zayn and Jey Uso just can't help themselves. They're arguing again, and the tension is rising. But they aren't the only ones. In the midst of the war, Bobby Lashley and Omos have had their disagreement as well. There is battles within the wars, within the teams themselves. Jey and Sami's argument boils over, and Jey Uso drops Sami Zayn with a super kick. It's an absolute disaster, and the leader, Roman Reigns, is furious. He gets right in the face of Jey Uso, and they're arguing now as well. But stunningly, Jey Uso super kicks Roman Reigns. He's got a long history with him, and he's had enough. Reigns is down by Jey Uso, and he won't stop laying into him. Omos, Cedric and Shelton take out Solo and Jimmy in the other cage, leaving Lashley to spear Jey Uso right next to the down Roman Reigns. And it's right next to Roman Reigns that the historic title run ends. And with that, Bobby Lashley and his group are back in business.